welcome once again to another episode of Open Talk. In today's episode, our guest is Idris Mears, a publisher and a British book merchant. He's as well an educationist who converted to Islam in 1973. We will talk to him about his conversion to Islam and what inspired him to become a book merchant and spread the Islamic literature around the world through international book fairs. Welcome to our program, Haj Idris.
Welcome. I'm very pleased to be here.
Well, we're pleased to have you. To start with, can you tell me what made you convert to Islam?
It's a story.
We would love to hear your story.
So I was a young man growing up in the 1950s, the 1960s in Bahrain, of all places to live, which was a wonderful place. And we lived a very privileged lifestyle as expatriates. But when I became a teenager, I began to notice that the British expatriate, or the expatriate community, was really very full of itself for no reason. They had a high opinion of itself, and they treated it as if they had a privilege in the world that was uniquely theirs and that they were somehow superior. But I looked at them and said, no, these people aren't superior. The way that they behave, the way that there was actually, I lived in Awali, which was a kind of like a very enclosed, insular community. It had no real connection to the rest of Bahrain. And the people in it, they lived their own lives, but there was a lot of drunkenness, there was a lot of infidelity, there was a lot of things that as a teenager you notice amongst the adults. You're looking for inspiration, you're looking for role models. So actually also the 1960s, when I was a teenager, was a time when there was a general questioning about society. So I began to kind of have a sense that my own society was not right. But in the same sense, I didn't learn anything about Islam at that point, but I was ready to question and to look for something. And so when I went to university, then I was going there with this expectation that I would be able to find things that would change my life and change society. It was a revolutionary time. But when I got to university, I was also very privileged to go to Oxford University, and I had high expectations of the quality of the people that I would meet, the quality of the people that would be teaching me. But what I found was that they had information and they didn't have knowledge, they didn't have wisdom, they didn't have something that I was looking for. And so actually what I ended up doing was I ended up dropping out from the university and then seeking a career in theatre, but not not commercial theatre, in an experimental theatre which was like on the cutting edge of exploring change in society. And I thought I was looking, finding out about myself. And at a certain point, I met a Scottish man who was a Muslim, and he did a most extraordinary thing, because he, when he found out that I was an actor, he said to me, "Who's looking at you when you're on the stage?"
Okay.
Which I had a kind of answer, if I wanted to give an intellectual answer about the role of acting and the role of theatre in society, and how Greek theatre had a whole theory of catharsis. But the way that he asked me the question made me actually reflect about what was really going on when I was on the stage. Because when you're standing on a stage and you have the footlights glaring, you're actually looking into dark space. You don't see who's out there.
Okay.
So you're acting into a vacuum. But then I almost like put myself on the stage, looked into that blackness, and I realized that the eyes that were looking at me were the eyes of my parents.
Nice.
And that somehow was about, what was actually going on was like trying to attract attention. And he said to me, "Yes, haven't you realized that the whiskey bottle and the milk bottle, the baby's bottle, are the same? Because with acting, there's a whole culture of drinking, and most of the great actors have been alcoholics. or passed through alcoholism. And I was only like 20, 21 years old, but already, I was on that path. And so he stopped me in my tracks and got my attention by this kind of being like a doctor reading my pulse. And he said, and that, quite frankly, that's not very interesting. And I had to say, that's true. And then actually he told me about Islam, but because of that, being able to understand me and I sort of trusted him and saw something in him. Actually, because I was open to, I was a young man, 21, looking for things in my life, I became Muslim instantly.
Okay.
So I, in a sense, found out about Islam after I became Muslim, if you understand.
So after you became Muslim,
yes,
you
and then so.
Step
but
by step.
That's a long time ago. So that's about 46 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that's how you converted to Islam.
Yes.
Moving to as an educationist, and I believe you're a book publisher. Could you tell us?
I've had different themes in my life. I got involved with publishing quite quickly. So when I was with a group of English people that became Muslim, particularly with this teacher from Scotland, who was the one who was like the kind of the centre of it, who pulled us in, and he had a background in publishing, and so we started to publish books. So I got involved as a young man, with the kind of I was helping, basically as the gopher, go for the coffee, carry the books. But I actually, and then I did go off for a while to study in Egypt, to study Arabic, and I got a little bit of, formal Islamic education. Then I came back and I ended up becoming the director for that publishing company, which was called D1 Press. So in the history of English Muslim or Muslim publishing in English language, the D1 Press was a very significant, it was really the first publishing house.
Nice.
But then as I got older, then I had children.
Okay.
And then you're faced with kind of like, how are you going to educate your children? So then in a sense my focus of attention turned to education, and I didn't want to put them into the state school system. So, and I was actually part of a kind of community where there were other families that had young children. So we got together and we created a project for what I would call enhanced homeschooling.
Okay.
But that enhanced homeschooling actually became like a little school.
Nice.
And then that was at the beginning of the 1980s. And then there were other people in the United Kingdom that were kind of starting similar kind of education projects, including Use of Islam. I don't know if you...
I have heard of him, yes.
So he started his... He actually came to visit us in our community in Norwich before he started his project in London.
Nice.
So, but at that time also, we started to make the networking. So we had a thing called the Muslim Education Trust.
And how does that work in UK now?
Well, now that became a thing called the Association of Muslim Schools, and that actually acts as an umbrella body for both unifying the work that's going on within the Muslim schools and backing them up with professional teacher training and development of curriculum, but also acting as an interface between them and the British government. So they are recognised by the British government as the official body representing Muslim schools, not just the Muslim schools in the private sector, but also the Muslim schools in the state sector.
Nice, that's really nice.
So I ended up being the director for that association for a period of time.
Okay.
And then after that, I kind of decided that, I basically retired from that, but I always wanted to go back into publishing and to have a kind of a bookshop, and to have, and a part of my work as the ambassador for the Association of Muslim Schools had brought me to the Middle East, particularly to the UAE, and I had saw an opportunity for a kind of attending the book fairs. So I began to attend the Abu Dhabi book fair and the Sharjah book fair, and to bring a collection of books.
And how important is that, bringing, coming to the Middle East and trying to spread this awareness of reading Islamic books and Islamic literature? How
I'm very careful to say I'm not an Islamic publisher or an Islamic bookshop.
Okay.
I have a collection of books about Islam and the Muslim world, and I have a full range. So I mean, books are like are doorways to in one sense they're just information, and sometimes you have to have the full range of books. You have to have books that you don't personally agree with.
Of course.
I always say that there are some bad books that good people have to read because they've become part of the discourse. There's a lot of books written about Islam, particularly at this particular time, which I would strongly disagree with, and a lot of Muslims would, but they've become things that have become things that you have to kind of put on your screen, and you have to. So, I have that kind of book. I have the books about all the different madhahib, different approaches to Islam.
Okay.
I'm not making the judgment for people.
People need to.
But
make
at the
their
same
own
time, I
judgments.
am trying to create an atmosphere. What I would like to say, I'm trying to create a zone where people are encountering Islam, but that zone is an act of reimagination. But it's what I would call in Arabic a barzak bain al-Bahrain.
Okay.
But the Bahrain is two audiences. There's the general audience who, the world audience who have a particular view about Islam, which I think they need to reimagine it. But the Muslims themselves are the other audience, and they also need to look into that space and reimagine what Islam is, to re-encounter it. And so I'm hoping I'm providing that kind of zone of encounter.
And what is one of your favorite books that you have?
Right, I'm always asked that.
Okay.
So the favorite book that I have is a book that I worked on for a year.
Okay.
Which is a book about the Prophet Muhammad called Ash-Shifa.
Okay.
Ash-Shifa lil-Qulub bi-Ta'rif al-Huquq al-Mustafa. The healing of the hearts by knowledge of the rights of the chosen one. I mean, it's got a wonderful, but it's a book that contains it's like an ocean. There's the beginning part is commentary on the verses of Quran that are about the Prophet Muhammad, either openly and directly or by allegory, and then it goes into his qualities of character, his kind of, and it's like a wonderful book.
And you have it here in the
I have it
book,
with yes on
in the
my
book fair,
bookstore.
yeah.
Yes, so that's one book that I.
So that you relate the most to.
I don't read it as much as I should do. My
Okay.
wife, on the other hand, has got it right there by her bedside, and like she gets through different. I have to keep on giving her new ones
Okay.
because she kind of she's written so many notes and kind of
To understand that too.
Yes,
Yeah.
so yes.
So
And I have many books because books are.
of course,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's your favorite book.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite books. Yeah.
So knowing that you're here for the Bahrain International Book Fair, how do you find it so far, and what would you like to tell everyone out there that have not visited the book fair?
Well, I
yet?
think more people should come and visit it. It's in a very nice location. I think it's wonderful that Muharraq is being celebrated as the capital of culture of the Islamic world, and it has a wonderful history, and it's part of the kind of the maritime history of the Gulf, which I find fascinating. But it's a little bit to one side of the island, so I don't think everybody has got there yet, and I don't think they realise what a wide selection of books. I mean, myself, I've got about 1,600 titles.
Nice.
But I'm only bringing like one or two of each title. So people have to come quickly, otherwise all the books will be gone.
Yeah, especially the book that you said it's one of your favorites.
Yeah, I've only got 3 left. So right. So hopefully you'll be kind of rushing to get it.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully, everyone should
Yeah.
visit the fair.
Yeah.
Well,
And also, when you come to book fairs, you meet interesting people.
of course, you
Yeah,
meet
yeah.
interesting people.
Book people
and
are-
exactly.
Yeah.
And you add to your knowledge when you read these lovely books.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, there's a secret as well that
Sure.
you don't necessarily have to read all the books that you buy right away.
Mhm.
Like you can have books on your bookshelf that are waiting to be read.
Of course, yeah.
And sometimes with books, you see, you won't always ever find that book again. So if
Mhm.
you see a book that you think is going to be interesting and that you might want to read, buy it. And just it being there in your library or in your room, it will kind of draw you to it at the time when you need
When
it.
you need it, yeah. That's
So people
true.
should have a relationship with books. It's part of, I think it's part of being a human being.
Of course,
So
yeah.
don't have a relationship with your iPhone.
Mhm.
Have a relationship with your books.
With the books, they're better.
They're better.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Haj Idris, for being with us. I hope you have a good stay in Bahrain.
I'm enjoying it immensely.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Once again, our guest today was Idris Mears. He is a book publisher and a British book merchant. Thank you for watching Open Talk. Have a good evening.